In one Leicester neighbourhood, a quiet decision has just ignited a firestorm. A local landmark, closed but not forgotten, is now at the heart of a bitter battle over identity, tradition, and what kind of future residents want for their community. Petitions have been launched, emotions are running high, and behind it all, a single vote has triggered outrage that isn't going away anytime soon. Here's what happened. But first, hit the like button and subscribe to the channel for more. A quiet corner of Leicester has just become the centre of a fierce cultural clash, one that pits local tradition and identity against demographic change and controversial planning decisions. The story centres around the Glen, a once beloved pub on Hillsborough Road in Leicester. It closed its doors for the final time in April 2023. For many locals, it wasn't just a business closing, it was the end of a community fixture, a place where friendships were made, celebrations held, and stories shared across generations. Now, just over a year later, the Glen is set to be transformed, not into another pub or a community centre open to all, but into a mosque. The decision, approved by Labour-run Leicester City Council, has sparked fury from local residents. More than 2,500 people signed a petition to stop the conversion. Nearly 900 formal objections were filed. And yet the plans were waved through. The proposal came from the Ayres Monsell Community Foundation, whose representative argued that the building was sitting idle and needed to be brought back into meaningful, active community use. Their aim, they said, was to provide a permanent home for the area's growing Muslim congregation. But the pushback from residents has been passionate and deeply emotional. Petition organisers were quick to clarify that their opposition was not based on religion, but on the desire to preserve the cultural identity of Hillsborough Road. They described the Glen as more than just a building. It was part of their personal and collective memory, a local landmark where community bonds were forged. One resident, Adam, expressed what many others feel, but are often afraid to say out loud. It just feels like most derelict places are being turned into mosques. My community was forced out when they turned our church into a mosque. It just doesn't seem fair. Another, Darren, said plainly, "We don't want this on our doorstep." Mark called it a cultural disturbance, and Cheryl made a plea to fight to save this pub and reopen it for the community. But in spite of all this, the council gave the green light. Here's where the controversy deepens. The chair of the planning committee, Yasman Sati, not only approved the proposal, but she also holds the role of secretary of the Federation of Muslim Organizations. That's raised serious concerns about impartiality and transparency in the process. Sati acknowledged the objections, but said she believed issues like noise and traffic had been addressed. She added, "I think bringing this disused property back into use is a welcome thing," and urged the foundation to work closely with residents. But for many, those words ring hollow, because it feels like their voices were heard but then ignored. The council did attach a few conditions. The mosque will only be allowed to open between 7:30 a.m. and 11 p.m. and there will be no amplified calls to prayer. An exception has been made for extended Ramadan prayers. Officials say this will limit disruption and argue the mosque's use won't cause more disturbance than the pub once did. But critics say that comparison is weak. A pub is a commercial venue that people choose to enter. A mosque is a religious institution that, while vital for some, can fundamentally change the character of a neighborhood, especially when concerns of cultural displacement already run high. It's also important to note the checkered history of the Glen. According to the Pub History Project, the venue had a troubled past in the late 1990s and early 2000s, plagued by gang activity that drove multiple landlords away. It closed in 2005 before eventually reopening, but never fully regained its former glory, finally shuttering after COVID in 2023. That history is now being used by some officials to argue that the building was more of a liability than an asset. But locals see it differently. For them, the solution was never demolition or conversion, it was revival. They wanted to restore it, not replace it. So what does this story really tell us? It tells us that Britain's cities are changing rapidly. that local traditions are being lost, not because people don't care, but because planning decisions are made behind closed doors by people who may not reflect the communities they represent. And when people voice discomfort, they're too often dismissed as reactionary or intolerant, when in reality they're asking valid questions about belonging, representation, and what happens when your past is bulldozed in the name of progress. The Glen is just one building, but what it stood for, community, identity, and continuity, isn't easily replaced. And when those things are stripped away, brick by brick, what's left? That's the real question. And it's one we need to start asking before more doors close for good. In other news, Reform UK is preparing a series of legal challenges to close down asylum hotels in areas where it now has control. Nigel Farage's party has appointed a team of lawyers to prepare judicial reviews aimed at blocking the opening of new asylum hotels in the 10 councils it took control of in the local elections. The party will also fight to close existing hotels through legal means. Reform has appointed a King's Council to lead what it calls its Legal A team, which is working pro bono. These challenges will target the Home Office, which is responsible for selecting hotels to house asylum seekers. The move is expected to put Reform-controlled councils on a collision course with the Labour government. Party chairman Zia Yusuf told The Telegraph, "We will resist the dispersal of thousands of illegal migrants into local communities, which is a huge betrayal of everyone who voted Labour and everyone in the UK." He added that the party has some of the best lawyers in the country working for free to resist this awful government. Yusuf said, "We will fight Labour in every possible way we can to protect constituents inside reform-controlled councils from their horrendous agenda." He also issued a warning to businesses considering housing asylum seekers, stating, "By doing so, we're going to put landlords and hoteliers on notice. If you are a hotelier or landlord in a reform council area, do not expect an easy ride if you are betraying your country. Councils can bring legal challenges against government decisions affecting them and use public money to finance such action." Yusuf claims Reform has a strong chance of winning these challenges. He cited a 2022 case where Great Yarmouth Borough Council successfully blocked asylum hotels on its historic seafront. However, other challenges have failed, including attempts by West Lindsey and Braintree District Councils. Reform has also established a Directorate of Government Efficiency modelled on Elon Musk's similar department in Washington, a national body which will identify wasteful spending, corruption, and uncompetitive procurement processes across its 10 councils, Reform claims. While aiming to cut waste, Yusuf promised to protect essential services. He said, "If you have a SEND child under a reform council, you have nothing to fear. Your children will get to school and get to school on time." What are your thoughts on what we discussed in today's video? Let me know down in the comment section below. If you've not yet already, make sure you do drop a like on this video and subscribe to the channel for more British content. Thank you, take care, goodbye.